happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who are with us this morning, those watching online, and to all the women who have over the years nurtured us, prayed for us, guided us, corrected us, helped us along our way, helped us be better than we would otherwise be. We are grateful for you. I was saying to someone in the gathering space, they asked what I had planned special for Kim today. And I thought, well, I got up and left the house before 7 o'clock, so that's what I have special planned for Kim today. She can sit at home with the remote and drink her coffee in peace, and is probably happy about that. But yeah, Mother's Day for us are always a little weird because I work, and I used to leave her home with 3 kids, so alone. But I pray it is a wonderful day. And for those of you who are physically separated from your mothers for whatever reason, and you remember them well today, I pray God's peace be with you. Diane mentioned it. Next Sunday, we do have a church conference scheduled for right here in the sanctuary at noon to review, consider, hopefully approve our building project and renovation and expansion project. There are, of course, some renderings around the building. Tuesday evening, Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., 7 p.m., there's an opportunity for you to hear more about it, to ask any questions you may have. We'll have representatives from our finance committee, building committee, the architect, the contractor. They'll all be here at each of those meetings. So please come. We look forward to that on Tuesday as well. And a special thank you to Suzanne Carter, who's been our building committee chair, to the members of the building committee, to Keith, and so many others who have gotten us this far with lots and lots of work over the years. Thank you to each of them. I look forward to seeing you maybe Tuesday and then next Sunday as well. So for the 2 texts, we actually heard a bit of one sung by the children this morning, Psalm 23, and then, of course, the gospel reading, in which we are reminded that Jesus called us sheep. I think he did so for a couple of reasons. It is, of course, an image that his culture, the people in his context, would have understood. They could relate to it. But beyond that, I think he knew, one, that we need a guide. That we need someone, something to define the way for us, to lead us, to maybe push us forward a bit at times, to call us, to help us in the way that we should go. And 2, Jesus called us sheep because he knew that we have a tendency to wander. It's usually not intentional, but sometimes we become absorbed with what's in front of us, preoccupied with life. We get distracted, and like sheep who are focused on grazing, after a while we look up and we realize we've kind of wandered off from the flock, or we realize they've moved on to another pasture. It's like the hymn says, "Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love." Jesus called us sheep because he knew we needed a shepherd. Someone to watch over us, to show us the way, to call us home, to invite us to be our true and best selves. Someone to lead us to green pastures, to help us find the still waters. You know, sheep and shepherds spend a lot of time together. They get to know one another well. The shepherd comes to know the unique qualities of each of his or her sheep, can tell when something is wrong, can tell when one is missing, can distinguish them one from another. And likewise, sheep know their shepherd. They can detect his or her unique way of shepherding. They know the sound of their shepherd's voice. They know that the sound of that particular voice means water and food and safety, peace, security, life, care. Jesus once told his disciples, "I am the good shepherd." And then later, "My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me." Knows us, closer to us than our very breath. The Good Shepherd, and we are His own. Knows each one of us with a love that is intimate and personal, unconditional, and everlasting. Continuously calling out to us, seeking us, inviting us into relationship, inviting us to come home. The writer of Psalm 23 maybe had these images in mind when they wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Leads me in right paths for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear nothing. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." I am the good shepherd, Jesus says. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they know me. We often hear the words of Psalm 23 at funerals, where the focus is usually placed on that phrase, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, or in the way the New Revised Standard Version translates it, walking in the darkest valley. But there's a lot more to that psalm than just that passage, that little section. One of the interesting things about Psalm 23 to me is that bit at the end. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. It's a beautiful image of God's care, God's compassion. But in that particular way of translating the psalm, God is understood to be passively following us around. But the Hebrew verb radaf, which can mean follow, is actually better translated pursue or chase. The goodness and mercy of God don't follow us around like our favorite pet, kind of trailing along behind us. Rather, as in the famous poem by Francis Thompson, the Lord's goodness and mercy chase us down labyrinthine paths all the way to the gates of heaven, like the hound of heaven. They stay hot on our path. We are pursued by mercy. We are chased by grace. We are not merely followed. It's the Methodist idea of prevenient grace, of God's presence, God's mercy, God's love with us, around us, even before we are aware of it. It's the father who had lost two sons coming to the road to greet the younger before the younger ever arrives home. It's the father leaving the party to go outside to welcome the elder brother in. It's the God who, like a mother hen, longs, desires to gather all her children beneath her wings. This is the God who loves actively, passionately, the good shepherd who knows us intimately, better than we know ourselves. And because of His love, His unconditional, prodigal, excessive love for us, He's always reaching out, always calling, always chasing and pursuing, always inviting. We may stray like sheep, for sure. We may wander off into someone else's pasture. We may not always come when we're called, but our good shepherd pursues us throughout our life, and perhaps even beyond. God goes to unimaginable lengths to love us, even as far as being pushed out of the world and onto a cross, all to bring us home. All of this means, at least for me, that we are loved by God with a love that we will never fully comprehend. And that love means that God doesn't sit back and patiently wait or hope that we'll show up someday, but rather that God always takes the initiative, reaches out, pursues, to heal our broken relationship, to mend our hearts, to restore the love between us. You all have heard it. Maybe you've said it. I probably have said it about folks making the comment that we found God, or I'm going to find God. Guess what? You don't find God. If ever you think you have found God, it's only because God was there pursuing you all along. And God found you. These texts also mean, as John suggests, that we need to listen well in order that we might love and live well. I don't know about you, but I can be... Kim would laugh at this if she heard... Well, she'll hear me say it at 11, and then she'll laugh at 11. I can be prone to act sometimes without listening. And to not guard my overreactions. Best leadership advice I was ever given. Guard your overreactions. I can be prone to exercise my mouth without engaging my ears and my mind and my heart. But John says, listen. Listen at a deep, deep level, so that we might then respond and act from a place of wisdom and discernment. You've probably heard the old wisdom saying, think before you act. That's great advice. We could use more of that. But for those of us who seek to live and love as Christ, to follow the Good Shepherd, the saying probably should be, listen before you act. Listen. It's in and through our attentiveness, our listening to the Good Shepherd, the one who knows us, loves us best, who pursues us throughout our lives, that we come to know how to live and act in a way that reflects the Good Shepherd's love for others. Knowing their shepherd's voice, sheep follow because they've listened well. And when they hear that voice, its cadence, its tone, its timbre, they know it's not a wolf out to destroy, but the one who leads them to green pastures and still waters, who leads them home. Remember that image at Christ's baptism when the dove came from heaven and said, "This is my Son, the beloved." Listen to him. God's voice is often still and small, so it takes a little effort on our part. Saw it last week with Peter. Christ came to him 3 times. "Do you love me?" I think it was maybe Jesus' way of saying, "Hey, are you listening, Peter? Are you paying attention? Do you love me? If so, love, act, serve." The way we love well is by first listening well. I pray we'll always be a listening church, if we're nothing else. Listening churches are faithful churches. Because listening churches recognize the sound of the one who's called them, who gives them life, who's inviting them to be in ministry in the world, whose unique call is on their life to be a people who love well, who pursue others because God has pursued us. I pray that we listen well so that our shepherd's voice doesn't get lost in the deafening voices that are all around us all the time, trying to lead us in different directions, distracting us from what God is calling us to do and be. It's so important because, again, we can only hope to live and love as Christ, to be our shepherd's sheep, if we first listen. Because listening's how you get to know someone. If any of you are in a relationship, been in a relationship, you know that. Listening is how you get to know someone. And once you know them well, you can love well. The more carefully we listen to God in Scripture, in worship, in prayer, in service, in fellowship, the more we come to know our Good Shepherd well, the more we'll recognize His voice, the more faithfully we can follow, the more deeply we'll love, and the more we'll reflect light into the darkest corners of this world, and the more others will know that God is chasing after them as well. We are We're loved and cared for by a great, good shepherd. God does lead us in right paths. There is nothing to fear. Our cup overflows because we matter to God, and God pursues us every day like the hound of heaven, on our heels, chasing after us, relentlessly seeking us. God is always inviting us into the goodness of God's presence, always leading us to green pastures and to still waters, always inviting us home. So today, come home. Amen.